Aging Parent Crisis. This is about you and about your aging loved ones and the things that might happen, and most people don't feel prepared for the things that might happen that we consider an emergency or a crisis. I'm Carolyn Rosenblatt. I'm an RN and an attorney.
And I'm Dr. Mikol Davis. I'm a psychologist, and I've worked for many, many years with families, and particularly have dealt with a lot of crises among families and conflicts that families have had to deal with. And we're here today primarily because we want to save you a lot of the pain and the frustration that's involved when you don't plan ahead. And unfortunately, most of us don't plan ahead, and it's once we're in the crisis, we wished we would have done some things quite differently.
Right. It's very hard for most people to handle crises. It's hard even for professionals, but for you, maybe you haven't had a lot of experience with it, and we just want to make anything that comes up for you easier. So this is our effort to help you learn something new and to help you feel more secure about the fact that your aging loved ones, your aging parents, are probably going to have something come up that's going to involve you directly that you would consider a crisis.
So we're excited today about sharing with you some very practical information that's come from our own direct experience and from many hundreds of people that we've worked with over the years at agingparents.com, and we want to help you get prepared so that you'll be able to take action and avoid a lot of the anxiety and fear and panic that comes along with it, often for most of us.
All right.
All right, you ready to get started?
Sure, let's get going.
Okay. So welcome. Now we're heading out to the presentation, and we want to welcome you. Maybe you're here because you or your aging parents have already had a crisis, and maybe you're here because you're interested in generating more information and knowledge, and you've got the smarts that you know that it's time to start educating yourself about being prepared for what's to come in dealing with caring for your aging loved ones.
Maybe you're in a crisis now, and if you are, maybe these are things that will help you get through it better.
We've got a special bonus for those of you that are able to stick around for our 30-minute presentation that we're giving you. And at the end of the presentation, we're going to give you a link so that you can get this Aging Parents Survival Guide Toolkit, $29 value. It's got actually more than 20 pages of handy forms that'll help you organize your caregiver information that you need to be the best that you can to help your loved one. And we'll provide that link at the end of the presentation.
All right, so this is about crisis planning. And we think about crisis, think about emergencies. We generally do this for our own families. A lot of people live in places where there are natural disasters that are likely, hurricanes, floods, here in California, earthquakes. We do some kind of crisis planning for those, or we're urged to by the public health authorities and government. We do it with plans, we have kits, we have storm shelters, we have survival gear, we have all kinds of things that will help us get through a crisis. But we don't necessarily do that when it comes to the kinds of foreseeable crises that our aging parents might have. Why aren't we doing this for dealing with our aging loved ones?
So why are you here and what's in it for you today? Well, we're going to help you understand the value of planning ahead, and this is clearly an important aspect of why you're here.
So it's for you if you don't like nasty surprises for which you are totally unprepared. This webinar is for you. And you're going to learn about common crisis situations that happen with aging parents. If you haven't gotten there already, you probably will. Maybe you've been through one of these before, and we're going to talk about it so that you will learn from your own experience.
And additionally, what you're going to learn are some of the more common crisis situations that will happen to aging parents, and most importantly, how to avoid the panic.
All right, you're going to learn about tips that are going to help you successfully handle crises. We expect them in a way, but you never expect it the day it happens. So we want you to be able to handle those things with more calm than you've ever thought you could.
This webinar is an overview. You will need more than just a few basics that we're going to show you, but we're going to start with those basics within the short time that we're going to be focusing on today. But more importantly, we're going to give you that basics to be able to do an effective crisis action plan.
Right. And if you want to take it further, we will offer an enhanced learning opportunity in a separate presentation. If you want to get more specific, you'll have complete instruction and a preparedness kit in our C.A.P. seminar. That's Crisis Action Plan seminar. And we'll tell you more about this at the end. But generally, consider this overview course a get started, and really get it done is the next level.
So, how do we begin to ready ourselves to be responsible in a crisis for an aging parent or a loved one?
Crises are what happen to all of us sooner or later. We have to accept the reality that nobody gets out of here without some emergency sometime. And as parents age, we need to expect the changes in their lives that you see. Their health condition deteriorates, their ability to manage independently may change drastically. It may happen gradually or it can be sudden, but we need to expect that this is going to be the case.
What's critical initially is the ability to recognize the risks. It's important that you understand that crises are going to happen and we can survive them in one piece, but we've got to plan properly. This is more important than just thinking about it. It's writing and collecting information.
And that's the step a lot of people don't take. Recognizing the risk comes first, but your confidence is going to come from being aware and really prepared to take the right kind of action you have to take when the burden falls on you to take some action. And that's really what this is about tonight or today.
We're going to begin to talk more about the difference in being proactive versus reactive, and we're going to challenge you to look within yourself as to which one are you. Do you tend to be a proactive person in situations, or do you tend to be more reactive? And clearly the proactive person in dealing with crises is a person that feels that you need to have information. You need to have that information available at your fingertips so that you can handle things, and you need to have done your homework in advance.
Right. Okay. So if you are a reactive person, you're the individual who gets to the emergency or the crisis situation with no idea what to do. You've got to rush headlong into it and hope that somebody else is going to fix it, manage the damage for you. You don't have any data. People ask you questions. You shrug your shoulders. You look to somebody else. That's a reactive person. And if you're like that, we want to help you make a change so that you don't stay like that.
Yeah, I'll deal with that if that happens.
Right.
As if I can plan when that crisis is going to occur. So, clearly no one gives you an aging parent's emergency plan, just like you never got a manual when you had your first child, or nor did you get a manual of how to have a successful marriage. Well, the same thing is true in dealing with caring for aging parents and planning accordingly. So you got to make your own plan. And you've got to do 4 important steps in developing this plan. It involves gathering information, asking questions. It involves writing or typing that information down. It involves storing that information and organizing that information. And so these 4 steps are going to give you the confidence to be able to have that information organized and are going to enable you to be successful when the critical time comes. So it's clearly the asking part, the typing part, the storing part, and organizing. We're going to talk a little more about what is all involved in those areas of which becomes the plan.
Right. And in your free downloadable toolkit, there are a lot of forms that will help you organize the information that you need. So that's really an adjunct to the presentation today. If you don't care to use that, that's fine, just as long as you have the most essential documents and most essential information in one place. So being proactive starts with asking. Does this woman look like somebody who wants to give you information?
No, thank you. I'm fine, dear.
Right. Don't bother me. I'm not going to have any problems.
It's all taken care of.
I've been living by myself for the last 50 years. Don't ask me to change. Well, they have to change. So their important information cannot be a secret. And I think one way to pitch it to them is to let them know that if they fall or they have a heart attack or there's a natural disaster, you are going to get the phone call about that, and you need to know how to help them.
So being proactive is also engaging and having that conversation with your mom or dad about how to deal with a crisis or an emergency that's going to happen, that may happen, that's going to affect them, and so that you're better knowledgeable about what are their wishes and how to best deal with the various parts of the situation.
Right. So being proactive means not just that you ask them, but you've got your notebook or you've got your iPhone or you've got your computer or you've gotten some other electronic device there so that you can log in the information when your parents give it to you and keep it in one place. Now, you may not feel comfortable with all those electronic devices, and that's fine. One of those notebooks that you used to use in school to keep notes would do just fine also, as long as you know what's in it and where to keep it. So if you don't know what to put in this book or electronic device, we will help you with that. Once the information is stored, you need to know how to organize it. You may get this in bits and pieces from your aging parent, but you've got to put it together in a way that's going to work for you, visualizing what would happen if there were an emergency.
So clearly we're going to focus now on what information do you actually need to have incorporated in a crisis action plan. So we're going to try to help you do something that's not comfortable for most people, which is to imagine on a step-by-step process what would happen if your aging parent had a crisis and couldn't speak. Who will they ask? Will they be asking you? Would authorities be contacting you to step up? And what are you going to need to know?
Well, you had that happen.
I had this happen. Very quickly, I got a call not very many months ago on my cell phone. I saw it was from Mom. I quickly answered it, as all good sons do, and said, "Hello, Mom, how are you doing?" And I heard this very low voice sound. "This is Officer somebody. I'm a paramedic. We've just found your mom. She fainted and she's passed out, and we're trying to find out if you have any critical information that we need to know because we need to take her to the hospital." So I had that test, and I needed to have some critical information, and that was a crisis situation where Mom had fallen. And this is a very common problem and crisis that happens for many aging parents, is they have problems with balance and falling either outside or falling at home, sometimes in traveling, but whatever. This is a very common thing that you need to begin to prepare yourself for, which is an inevitable. Another area of which that is very common that happens as a crisis for aging loved ones are obviously the health issues, the stroke, the heart attack, the illness, the need for hospitalization. Another common area is that if in fact that they need to go to the hospital, we know that many people are very uncomfortable with being in a hospital environment. Why is that not a joke? Anyways, especially those have to go through and be in an ambulance by themselves. There's a lot of fear and anxiety. You're probably yourself uncomfortable in dealing with situations that are going to involve medical intervention. And you need to have an emergency plan that's going to help you be effective for your mom and dad so that you're going to have that information available.
Right. So when somebody goes to the hospital, I am a strong believer, I think we both are, that nobody should go to a hospital without an advocate.
Have you been in ever a hospital before, dear?
Well, having been a nurse, yes. I spent 5 years training in hospitals, so yes.
And didn't you also sue nurses?
I've
sue hospitals.
Yes, I've sued a hospital or two, yes.
Yes, I think you did that in your career, dear.
But I think they can be dangerous places. It's really because they are large bureaucracies. There are 3 different people or 2 different people every shift taking care of the same patient, which could be your loved one. There are multiple kinds of personnel who come in and out of the room, of course, and they don't always have good communication. They're supposed to, but their communication that's not working very well can lead to mistakes and improper care. So in your emergency plan, you want to either be the one designated to accompany your loved one or get somebody to stand in for you. The advocate needs to be part of the emergency preparedness.
So another common crisis that we have with our aging parents is that, unfortunately, as we all know, we're dealing with the very high statistic of people that are winding up having some form of dementia. It sounds like I'm having it now. Dementia or memory loss. And they're getting lost, they're having problems that are related to their what's called executive functioning, and these are things that do happen often when we age, and we've got to be aware of what are the signs and symptoms so that we can plan accordingly, and that's a part of our plan.
Sure. Getting lost is a big one. Another one is that a parent just acts out inappropriately. We had a client who was 88. His son was our client also. They had a problem because his dad had been arrested. So they wanted to put him in jail, this 88-year-old. It was inappropriate behavior. I'm not sure that the elder understood that it was inappropriate, but that was a crisis. That was an example of something for which this particular family had not done any planning.
And this is an area, Carolyn, that you often did some work with dealing with car accidents,
Yes.
where you were dealing with aging parents
Right.
that were dangerous drivers that shouldn't have been behind the wheel or didn't have the reaction time to drive defensively.
Right.
And we know that that's a major crisis that many families deal with, and that's incorporated in one of the chapters that Carolyn wrote. Okay, let's move on to another common crisis, which is something that really is affecting us all in our economy right now, is parents running out of money and not seeing it coming. Not seeing it coming because we weren't paying attention, not seeing it coming because we had our own problems that we were dealing with, and not seeing it coming because we weren't asking the critical information about the kinds of savings that mom or dad had and how they were managing those funds. And it was only until then the crisis happens that we start thinking, what are we going to do? How are we going to be able to help our aging loved one
Right.
when many of us are struggling with just taking care of our own immediate family right now?
Sure. So, you've got to know about your parents' finances, and it's never too soon to start asking. They may not want to tell you, but it's very important to manage that resistance if they are refusing to disclose their financial situation. Maybe they're embarrassed. Maybe they think you're going to take it away from them if they tell you what they've got. There are a lot of reasons why people resist, why our elders resist. But it's a crucial thing because really, once again, it all comes down on you if they do not have enough funds to support themselves.
And the area of which that we really need to excel at is how to handle and overcome the resistance, which goes beyond the subject matter that we're going to talk about today, but it's something that we all deal with, and it's something that we've got to overcome if we're going to get that information. Part of the resistance, as you were saying, Carolyn, a lot of time has to do with being embarrassed. And,
Right.
And we know a lot of people that have been ripped off, often by family, unfortunately, sometimes sophisticated telemarketers, but it happens. And often the way that we find out about these emergencies and these crises is that we get an emergency phone call.
Right.
That dreaded phone call in the middle of the night that mom has fallen or dad has taken ill or some crisis has happened, and we're immediately shocked into having to step up and get involved. And your first reaction is going to be what most of us experience when we get that call in the middle of the night, of feeling a sense of fear and panic and just feeling our pulse racing and just being really confused about what kind of important action do we need to take.
Right. And then this idea here of being prepared is that you are going to know what to do after the phone call. You've got an idea in your mind of how to respond because you've thought this through, but you also have the information that you need to do the next step. Maybe you're going to get on a plane, maybe you're going to drive there, maybe you're going to call the nearest sibling. You've got that laid out in your action plan, and you proceed with that, and it starts to eliminate some of that confusion and replaces it with your confidence.
So clearly, being able to control our anxiety, and I know this from years and years in being a psychologist, comes from being prepared. Emergencies make us feel out of control. The difference is that if you've got a crisis action plan, you can get in control much faster and much better. And very importantly, your judgment and your problem solving are much better when you've got that information on hand. And all of us know this from experience. If you've got that information, you're not going to fumble and bumble and try to be able to figure this all out. It will all be available and be right there. Actually, maybe this guy has got that information. Maybe his sister's got that information.
Right. Well, part of the task when there is a crisis is that you have to not only manage your own feelings, but you've got to sometimes manage your family members' feelings and actions. And that means siblings or other relatives and your own kids maybe. People get out of control really quickly when there is a crisis. Your crisis action plan will help you deal with other family members and take the appropriate steps because you've already designated who's going to do something first. Somebody has to be in charge. If that's going to be you, then that can be something that's been agreed upon ahead of time, and that's in your plan. Everybody can share the plan. Some sibling conflicts can actually be avoided if everybody knows who is supposed to be in charge, for example. If everybody knows what's in the plan, you've got a better chance, at least, of keeping from driving each other nuts during this kind of situation.
And that's so common that people struggle with
that.
It
is.
I'm the oldest. I should take leadership,
right,
even though I'm totally incompetent.
Or you don't know, Mom, you don't understand, or I'm going to do it.
I was the favorite one, actually.
Right.
That's my favorite one.
Right. Well, the planning, the crisis action planning is a group effort for families. You've got to sit down together or have a joint conference on the phone or have an email exchange. It can be something that you plan, but the point is you've got to get started with it, and it's the key to your success, really. If you have difficult siblings or difficult parents, anybody out there have difficult parents?
None of us have that.
You've really got to be transparent about your plan as well so that everybody knows, as I was saying, who's going to be in charge, but also who's got the documents, who has the right to make decisions, who's going to be handling the money, all that sort of thing. It's a lot, and it's a burden on people. It's frightening for some. But I think the planning is the key to making it work. So the critical information you need is going to be illustrated here by an example. Let's just say you get a hospitalization, like Mikol's mom, who had to go to the hospital, no warning. Nobody knew she was going to faint. We knew which was the closest hospital because she'd been there before. But sometimes you don't know. If your parent has moved or you've moved or they built a new one, you don't know which the hospital is. So that's worth asking about. That's pretty basic information. It's also important to know what insurance your parent has because someone is going to ask you. I had a trip to the emergency room recently when I was doing some sports training, and they wanted my data and a check or a credit card in the emergency room.
As you walked in the door,
right?
Sign here.
They waste no time.
Yeah, Visa or MasterCard,
they're
dear.
After the money. If you don't know where your parents' checkbook is, if you don't know where their credit cards are, if you can't get access to any of that, it's going to be very problematic. You also need to know who is your parents' treating doctor, what medications they take, if they're allergic to anything. Let's say they get cut and they're allergic to penicillin and they want to give them penicillin. That could kill somebody. So it's very important that you get a grip on some of these things ahead of time. Not every single thing, but the essentials. That's part of why we're doing this. So you'll know what the essentials are.
So the other essential information that you're going to need to incorporate in this crisis action plan is that you've got to have financial information. And, do you have all your parents' important financial information? Do you've got access to your parents' home? Is there a spare key someplace that you have access to? Do you have the legal documents that you need? Do you know who's going to be the identified person as the advocate, as we were talking about before? And furthermore, who in the family will be able to get there first and be involved and be on the ground there at the time that they need to be.
Right. You also need to know, and this is part of the legal documents, who is going to make healthcare decisions if your parent cannot talk or can't decide those things for him or herself. How will your family communicate? Are you going to do email, texting, call each other? What's the plan? Do you know how to manage your parents' affairs in their absence? Bill paying, taking care of their usual obligations, attending to their pets, all kinds of things.
So in summary, Being proactive rather than reactive will empower you in any kind of crisis, and a proactive person will create a crisis action plan that will involve 4 steps: the asking part, the writing part, the storing the information, and the organizing that information. And I think that many of these steps are the many challenges that we all have. I think organizing is probably one of them. But asking for many people, just starting that conversation, often is someplace where people just fumble and bumble and don't get that information.
All right, so you can create your own crisis action plan in a number of different ways, but we have provided you with the valuable information that you need to consider as a part of your own plan. And if you would like the value of our experience and all those whom we've helped in the past to deal with their crises, we're offering you an additional opportunity. We have a supplemental seminar which springs forth from this one, Create Your Crisis Action Plan. And in that seminar, we actually take a form and show you how to fill it out. And we go through the steps with you. We walk you through the template. You can download the template. And then we give you legal forms as examples of what you need your parents to complete so that you'll be ready. For example, a healthcare directive, which is also called a living will or a power of attorney for healthcare. But we sort those things out for you. We give you one so that you can look at it and understand what we're talking about when you need one.
So the emotional value of being ready is part of what we've already begun to speak about, but you're going to be able to not get overwhelmed no matter what happens if you've got that action plan. And whether you think of yourself as being good or not so good when it comes to crisis, we're going to help you experience what it takes to get better at it, and that's going to add to your confidence in being able to handle any of them, the various kinds of common crises that we've spoke about, and it'll empower you with feeling that you've got that information. You're now ready to be able to do what's necessary to take action.
All right. Our C.A.P. Crisis Action Plan Seminar is available to you at convenient times. You can access it from home, pause it when you wish, or replay it. You will learn all you need to know about your plan in an hour. That will take the fear and mystery out of the emergencies that you might face, as well as coordinating family responsibilities. So here's our offer to you about that seminar. The value of our experience with our hundreds of clients, as well as our own personal experience with our aging parents. Mikol's mom is 90. We're going to give you the knowledge without having to get it the hard way. You can avoid costly mistakes by taking this seminar. You can save time and money, as well as the heavy emotional price that you will have to pay. So the tuition for the C.A.P. seminar is it's a $625 value. We discount that for you. Remember, we give you direct instruction, interaction, advice, legal forms, your own C.A.P. form, my book, and our podcast library, which is chock full of valuable information about all aspects of caregiving. And the discount for the webinar attendees is $130. The tuition for you is $495, and it will be some of the best dollars you have ever spent when that crisis hits you.
And as a special bonus, those of you that sign up for the C.A.P. seminar, we're also going to provide you with a free copy of Carolyn's book, The Boomer's Guide to Aging Parents, which is a $40 value. And some of you probably already have that book. It's filled with 9 chapters that provide some very practical legal and healthcare information that everyone needs to know to best deal with caring for your loved one. And as an additional special bonus, those of you that sign up for the C.A.P. seminar, you're also going to get extensive access to the podcast library that Carolyn was talking about. These are very practical tips on how to be a caregiver, how to be a distant caregiver. We didn't talk about that today, which is a very critical area. And all these podcast series were professionally produced, and that's got a value of about $185, and that's yours free as a part of the tuition that's available when you sign up for the webinar.
All right, to sign up for the seminar, you click the link on the right side of your screen, and that will take you to the registration form. And we will also be sending out reminders for those of you who do sign up so that you will keep it in your mind and get it on your calendar. And we look forward to helping you go further with your crisis action plan.
And here's the special bonus that we talked about for those of you that have made it through this 30-minute webinar. You see that there is a link there that you'll need to put into your browser. You can't type it on from the computer, but there's a link there. We'll try to put a link for you on the screen. And if you type in that link, it'll allow you to immediately download your version of the Survival Guide Toolkit. Now, for those of you that have got some questions, we've got some time. I know we've gone a little bit over the 30 minutes, but we want to take some of your questions that you have in reference to the emergency preparedness plan. But what questions do you have, Carolyn? Do you've got one there that's coming in there?
Okay, right. Somebody, this is Michelle. She is asking about what is the difference between a healthcare directive, a living will, and a power of attorney for healthcare. And Michelle, the answer to that is that in some places those words all mean the same thing. A living will has been called a healthcare directive, and a healthcare directive has been called a power of attorney for healthcare. It is a document that allows someone appointed by your aging parent to make healthcare decisions when your parent cannot make those decisions for him or herself. There are some slight differences from state to state on these documents, but generally they're all the same in that the concept is that a competent person, that is your parent, when they're competent, appoints someone to act on their behalf at a later time.
I've got a question here from Steve that says, I've got a sister who lives close by my parents. I live about 400 miles away, but my sister refuses to get involved in taking care of my parents. Is there anything that I can do? Well, you know, part of what we want to encourage you to do, because we've dealt with this a number of times, is to realize the limitations. That if your sister at this point in time, it's not obvious that she needs to be involved in helping you, then you've got to realize that there are limited resources in your sister, and you've got to just continue to take the leadership and determine how you're going to best take care of the needs that your parents have, and realize that if you're going to continue to be frustrated and resentful of your sister's unwillingness to step in and deal with it, it's just going to take away from really the focus of where you need to put your energies. So, you know, cut your losses, move forward, and focus on the things that you can be effective with. Carolyn, we've got only time for one more question. Do you want to take that question that you've got?
Right, okay. This one is about a family that doesn't get along with each other, and how can they get together and do any kind of crisis planning when nobody communicates, and one of them is apparently got an alcohol problem. That's not uncommon, and there are lots of families that don't function very well. And in a way, it's sort of like the last situation where there's one who refuses to get involved and another one who's very interested in helping, but they live at a distance. You have to make do. When families don't get along, you invite them, by email at least, to do some planning. You get your crisis action plan forms together. You obtain the information from your parents. You at least have the data that you need if they can be persuaded to give it to you. And then you offer your siblings an opportunity to do something. Maybe if your parents become incapacitated, they can be in charge of paying bills, or maybe they can go to the store, or maybe they can do something, visiting once in a while. There are some people who just aren't going to be good for anything, and you have to leave them out of the equation and do it yourself. And it's better to do it yourself than to continually bang your head against a brick wall of a sibling who will not help you.
We see that there's additional questions that you have. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. We will do our best to be able to respond to you by email in terms of some of the questions that you have. We do want to thank you very much for taking your time and showing up and being a part of our podcasts, our webinar series, excuse me. We hope you have an enjoyable day or evening, whatever time it is at your time. And we want to thank you again for being a part of the Aging Parents community. And we wish you all a good day.
And we hope that those of you who are interested will join us for the Crisis Action Plan seminar. And those of you who are not, get your package of forms and move forward. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.